Hello, welcome to another episode of iAfrica, the show that celebrates everything African and creative. And in the third and final segment, we speak to House of Stone founder, that is Danayi Madondo, as she tells us the story of sustainable fashion. Please stay with me on today's episode. I am your host, Nicole Jamu.
Africa searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food.
And if you thought niche fashion was not a thing in Zimbabwe, you need to rethink, because this particular brand is all about selling you one specific idea, and that's what they've been doing since inception.
Hi, my name is Danayi Madondo. I'm the owner of an independent fashion brand called House of Stone. It's a lifestyle brand focusing on resort apparel, and I define my customer as the conscious wanderer, person who explores the world, who is in love with apparel that is handmade and that carries stories. I think for me, my intention when I started House of Stone was always to create a homegrown brand to the world. I always knew I wanted to create a lifestyle resort brand that were for people of affluence, but still accessible to any person. The sort of materials that I use, such as cotton, linens, natural fabrics, are for that person who's going to be a hot climate. So coming from Zimbabwe and developing these sort of like unique designs and taking them to the world, to resort places like Mauritius, Cape Town, those sort of spaces that bring you a sense of peace and relaxation. Those are sort of spaces that I believe my brand belongs in. Yeah. I think when I started off, it was chaotic. I have to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing, but over time I started to refine my aesthetic. I started to refine the sort of stories that I wanted to tell, even through my visual campaigns, but I called them visual poems. I knew I wanted to tell nuanced contemporary stories about Zimbabweans through the visuals that I delivered. But my apparel was always going to be very understated, sophisticated, timeless, and accessible for anyone, anywhere. And it's something that I came to with time. So I've actually grown within my journey as the owner of House of Stone. And it's been challenging, but I think Zimbabwe is one of those places, it's a space for people who have a strong vision, who persevere, who have a spirit that they want to continually learn. And I think that's what's brought me this far. It's so important. I've often defined creatives as historians, as cultural conservators, because in a sense, when people look back at Zimbabwe in 2023, 2024, the stories and the clothes we create actually speak to the people during that time. It speaks to our aspirations, it speaks to what our overall vibe and intention was. So I think it's so important for Zimbabweans in our diversity of thought and expression to share those stories so that people can know that from this one Zimbabwe, all these expressions, all these ways of dressing came from us. And then it speaks to the future generations that come. When they look back, they have a reference that they can access that tells them about who they are, where they came from. I'm going to be someone's ancestor. So one day someone can actually look at me and be like, this is what my ancestor was doing in 2024. This is what inspired them. Dombo shower, binga baskets, cotton grown in Zimbabwe, woven by hand. There's just so many parts of our culture and our practices that we can conserve through our artistic disciplines. So my presentation at Egypt in Cairo, underneath Canex, was absolutely incredible. It was almost like an accumulation of all the hard work that I'd put in. It's not easy to be from Zimbabwe and to find yourself on platforms and rooms with people such as David Klale, who has been known as the king of fashion, African fashion, for the longest time. So to be able to be invited into those rooms, to share space with those people and to learn directly and to touch their product and to hear from them, it's an experience I feel like you can't pay for. I feel like I would like to also be able to provide that same opportunity to even younger creatives and to help them on their own journey in terms of how they tell their stories, how they brand themselves in order to also be identified, to be allowed in those rooms. Because I don't have $1 million. I don't have that. I don't have access to those things. All those things come with hard work and utilizing my talent and understanding the power of storytelling. That's what actually opened the doors for me to be in those spaces. So I hope I continue to do what I'm doing well, and I continue to be recognized, and doors will continue to be opened. As they opened for me, I also do the same for those that are following after me. I would say every day I'm inspired, not necessarily always by the established designers, but I think more so nowadays I'm more inspired by the emerging designers and their tenacity and their level of creativity. Because that level of creativity, even for example within film, when you look at the things that our film industry, our independent film industry is accomplishing with close to no resource, and then you compare it to maybe a Hollywood, sometimes you'd be thinking it's the same budget. So I think I'm inspired by those that do the most with the least. In terms of people like David Tlale and established brands, I'm more interested in knowing how they did it. I want to know the 1, 2, 3s of how they got to the position in which they are in, what were the support systems that were there for them. That is what inspires and motivates me when I look at those brands, because I want to be in those spaces too. I want to be a Zimbabwean brand that's also seen internationally that can contend with those people, if not even Gucci. You know, so when I look at them, it's more aspiration. It's more like, give me the secrets. I want to know these fashion secrets so that we can share them with more people, so that more people can find themselves in a space of fashion success and not just notoriety, like a real genuine success where your livelihood is being sustained by your practice. African fashion is already evolving. Even like right now, we talk about AI and the new technologies that people are now introducing. People are now even growing materials from their backyard. You're literally planting a seed. When you uproot that seed, it's a material that can be transformed. So I feel like Africa is the space for all these innovations to take place. We have the land to do such innovations, such as growing our materials, and not just cotton, literal like roots into clothing. And then even AI now. I sold my first NFT about 2 years ago for $300 US. This is a non-tangible garment. So you can see the shift that's happening within fashion, where if we are the early birds and we catch on to these like digital trends or ecological trends, which we have the capacity to accomplish, we just need the resource of technology and maybe even financing to support us, we can contend with these international platforms. So I feel Africa, everyone's looking to us, but we can definitely do a lot more in terms of the innovative space. In terms of culture, you can't contend with us. We own it. We are it. Yeah. The subject of fast fashion versus sustainability is actually one that I'm personally grappling with right now, because the reality is the business of fashion requires numbers. It requires it to move at mass to an extent. So as someone who's built her business upon slow fashion, sustainable concepts made in Zimbabwe, there is this challenge where is the perfect balancing position for me to still have that within my brand, but still be able to upscale and meet the mass market in a way that is ethical. I got really amazing feedback the last time from one of our British Council representatives, and they said, sometimes you can't be everything to everyone. Pick which sustainable area that you want to focus on. If your sustainable area is going to be upcycling, deconstructing, do that, but figure out how to do it in a way that makes it accessible to more people. If it's going to be material, say my material is cotton, my material is linen, and let it be that. But ultimately, we're still figuring it out. I think the law of sustainability is a lot more exciting when you speak about it. It sounds beautiful, but when you bring it back to the commerce, there needs to be a sense of balance that needs to be found. And I think those conversations need to happen more so that we get to the answers that we need. Yeah.
That was the story of Danayi Madondo, obviously pushing the story of sustainability, not just in Zimbabwe, but all across Africa and across the world.
iAfrica searches for inspiration and innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and
So that was today's episode, and as you saw in the first segment, we had Kapupi, the ever funny comedian, who not only was making an impact back in the day, but continues to carve out a niche for himself. And obviously we spoke to the young, vibrant, beautiful Eden, and we wish her all the best with a musical career. We closed it off by taking you through a journey that's on African fashion, speaking to the one and only Danayi Madondo as she was talking sustainable fashion and projecting what fashion could be in Africa in the next 5 years or so. That was today's episode. I hope you are inspired to take on your creative journey and to find your roots as an African. I am your host, Nicole Jamu, and until next time, take care.
And innovation in all areas of popular culture, from fashion and design through to architecture, art, food, and travel. The focus is on outstanding individuals doing extraordinary things on the African continent. iAfrica presents creatives in their home nations, visiting renowned designers, musicians, architects who are leaving their mark on the young continent. From well-known brands through to ambitious startups, every week iAfrica seeks out the continent's best design and lifestyle innovations. Join me, your host Nicole Jamu, as we take a round trip across Africa and get you inspired, motivated, and future-oriented.